Welcome back to the Alive and Free podcast. We have Miriam Putnam here with us. We'll get into her, like all of her bajillions of credentials and all the other stuff probably along the way. But I want to start out with a question because on your website and some of your materials, you discuss this sort of lining up of three parts of the human. You have your body, your mind, your soul. Uh, the soul kind of gets a nod, but it doesn't get a lot of talk. Outside of the people that only focus on the soul and the religious aspect of this. But when we're talking about mental health and well-being, what is the soul for you? When you're saying we're trying to align it, what is that piece for you, and how do you distinguish between these three?
Well, so I have a question for you. I appreciate that, Bob, and thank you so much for having me on today. I love that we are holding space together in order to help others and bring more clarity and, information and forward progress. I love that we're doing that together. So, to answer your question, I promise to answer your question, but I am curious if you believe that you are a spiritual being.
That's why I'm asking you what you mean by that.
Oh, yeah. So for
Right,
me, for
yeah.
me, and what I do with individuals is whatever their viewpoint or definition of a soul or a spirit. I don't use the word spirit because usually that's attached to religious connotations, and people have sort of a one plus one equals two concept of it. So I think soul is a broader term where someone couldn't be religious or not religious. So it's basically that you are a spiritual being, is
Mhm.
the way that I personally look at it. And so, however, we can improve our lives today fixes our lives for later on.
Okay. So in your with the way you're talking about it, when you're lining up body and soul and mind, you're going, there's this invisible piece of us that is sort of our base identity, maybe? Is that how you would put it?
Sure. I mean, I know that I'm controlling things. So with my life is going to go in the direction that I choose to take it in. So I am the guiding force of my life. So the body is our vehicle, so to speak, and I am the captain of my life, right? This is like where our people get into creating their life from their vision boards or what is my life going to look like in the next year and how do I take it there? I'm the person that's choosing to take the actions. Like the body, some people are on automatic in a stimulus response sort of mechanism, right? In an overdrive and maybe overridden by triggers and then negative coping mechanisms. Like we have that element in our society that, we have to put more order in and help more people with getting good solutions. But over that, it is the individual in control, the soul, the spiritual being, the the entity, however you would like to look at it, that is controlling the body, either allowing it to go on stimulus response, unconsciousness and mechanisms, or not. Finding a
Okay.
way to absorb that, absolve it,
Yeah. So
find help with it.
where does the mind fit into that picture then for you?
So the mind, I mean, we're getting into like pretty intense concepts right off the bat,
I know.
but
I don't share.
you don't mess around, Bob, right?
I
No,
don't.
no, no messing around, no messing around. So, just to explain a little bit about my background and how I got here,
Sure.
is that I lost my mom to the unfortunately broken mental health system. And I don't know if you read anything about
Did.
that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
came from like a pretty well-to-do family, good insurance. So you'd think that our family would have been able to, afford the best doctors and the best treatment that America has to offer. And unfortunately, that was not the reality. So I started out on a pretty intense holistic mental health journey when I was younger, trying to figure out how do you solve it and what does it all mean and how come we're treating this quote unquote stimulus response like you and I agree on
Yeah.
with a medication that usually does produce pretty harmful effects. And I understand that medications can be used as an emergency response and Of course, if somebody needs to sleep, we have to use medications, but to use a medication on a child or an adult for a long-term period that doesn't actually resolve the issue and typically
As
creates
more.
yeah, typically creates like some pretty bad effects. What do we do about this? So I just poured myself into philosophy and spirituality and integrative health and holistic medicine. And does do homeopathic remedies have anything to say about this? And, what does the best and most well-known nutritionist have to say about it? What about the more integrative psychiatrists? And, just for me, I was looking, right? I even tried hypnotherapy with my mom, right? I tried like all these different things and like, why does hypnotherapy work for some and not work for others? So I was just on a quest to sort of answer these questions of how do you resolve it more systematically and not necessarily for the absolute worst cases, but for somebody like my mom, where there was drug issues in our family and marital problems, right? Because we have these issues in life, right? Marriages aren't always easy. We make bad choices sometimes, make mistakes. Marriages have difficulties. It's not always easy raising kids. And then you have health issues on top of it, and then extended family issues, and then people pass away. And so people end up having bad coping mechanisms to handle life, really, and like, what do we do about that? So that is how I ended up discovering and figuring it out, like kind
Yeah,
of
that
similar to you.
like that's part of the reason that I was curious about starting with the soul question, because
Yeah.
I mean there's not a lot of people that have gone like they've gone all over the alternative health. There's a lot of people that have gone all over the standard conventional Western medicine, which is a funny name for it, and then alternative medicine, also a funny name for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they've been down those roads, but not many of them have been like, well, let me look into philosophy. There's a lot of the people that are into sort of woo-woo realm of energy healing and stuff, but like there's not a lot of people that have gone down the sort of academic scholastic route as well. And then this sort of like deeper, let me understand the bigger scope of things, and then poured themselves in like you have into like nonprofit organizations and seeing how it works on the ground and whatever life afforded you. So you've had this like breadth of search, and then you've had this sort of breadth of opportunities to see it in practice and to
Yeah.
see what it does and doesn't work over time. And the piece that is frequently missing for me that I see all over the place and that I saw in myself for a long time, and it's been a couple years where I went down the road of really understanding the sort of stress stimulus response, retraining the nervous system. I could feel amazing, but without
Mhm.
the soul piece, without this really deep connection to God and to the source of my own existence,
Yeah.
it got to the point where I could feel amazing, but why? Why wake up in the morning? There was no suicidality, but there was just like no purpose to existence. And then I started kind of going crazy. And as I looked
Yeah.
around, I see all these people that are trying to teach people this is how you can feel better. This is how you can get rid of your stress. This is how you can get rid of this, that, or the other. And then those methods start to become like saviors in their own right. And then the person kind of, without realizing it very many times, just ends up having this shift into where what they're kind of worshiping is their own health instead of
Yeah.
actually being aligned with the source of their existence. I've just seen it a lot. I've seen it in me. I've seen it in a lot of people.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted
Yeah.
to start there, because
Yeah.
without that, it feels like everything else kind of can come untethered really quickly.
Yeah. Right. And then we almost create these compulsions to think that we are handling our life, but then keeping ourselves disconnected from ourselves or like our true purpose. And, I'm going to have a different one than you. Like we're all on different paths and different journeys, and we're different spiritual beings. And so we're going to have different purposes. And so what's going to light me on fire is going to be different than something that lights you on fire. But really to stay connected to, not to sound cliche, but a little bit cliche, like our guiding light, like our source, our power, our where are we going, and I studied a lot about like sort of karma, right? And Asian philosophies. And I tried meditation. And I really just, I wanted to understand and know all these different things and like what works and what doesn't work in practice,
Yeah.
really.
Which is the key question, right? Like in theory, there's a lot of things that work really well. Even in labs, there's a lot of things that work really well that in practice become untenable, you know? So then
Totally.
what
Untenable
that
is a
so that
very good
search,
word for it.
yeah. So then that search then brings you back down to a place where you've developed like your own stress course and like free yourself from stress stuff, and you developed other methods and whatnot that you're like in practice, these things actually work. What did that distill down to for you?
Sorry, I don't actually understand the question completely. Distilled down to like how or what does it look like? The framework? Like
Yeah, yeah, the framework. Yeah.
the framework has stages. So
Yeah.
the course comes with a couple hours of coaching. We start off with a freedom from stress analysis. And so this is kind of starts you out on how it's science backed, the program. And so a person gets a true viewpoint on themselves. So there's never anybody evaluating you and saying, okay, Bob, in order for you to feel better, you have to do 10 push-ups every day and 20 squats and take this vitamin routine and go to this temple and do this. Like, I'm not doing that, and my team doesn't do that. It's more about this is the test, and this is your viewpoint on yourself. And through the program, making it individualized, those areas of your life will improve. And that is just the reality. So the beginning part is a virtual coaching. And then for individuals that are qualified and I choose to work with, and we meet in person
Sure.
to dissolve that negative energy in the
Yeah.
mind in order to get the life balance that is very freeing.
Yeah, I want to get into the dissolving the energy in the mind, but I have one question about this that is along the practice that I've made, like in my own courses that I've put together. I found like I don't like the idea of gamifying something so much because it makes it too trite, like this is somebody's life. But I did find
Sure,
that like I had to create ways of them like measuring at the beginning of a session even and at the end of a session if progress was made
sure.
so that they could like hold on to that. I'm assuming you found ways to do that for yourself. For me, I'll have
Yep.
them like rate something like a number, like, okay, cool. Say this phrase out loud, or let's look at this thing, or so this reaction. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how true does this thing feel, for instance? And they'll give me a
Yeah.
number, and then by the time we're done, I'm like, okay, just say it out loud. And it could be like a dumb phrase, like I'm a dork, or it could be something horrible that they've carried for a long time, like nobody loves me. And in the beginning, maybe it's a 9 or a 10. At the end, maybe it's only a 5, maybe it's a 3, maybe it's a 1, maybe it's a 0,
Yeah.
whatever. But they're like, wow, that I'm that doesn't feel as bad as it did before. That's cool. I'm assuming you have something similar.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Sort of like stages, if you
Okay.
may, and
Yeah.
like a way for me and the individual that's chosen to work with me or someone else on my team and my agreement as well, right? Because
Yeah.
two people have to be on the same page and just sort of how is this working and how is it going for you? I mean, sometimes I use the rating system as well, because it's
Mm.
like kind of a standard understood way of kind of being on the same page with someone.
Yeah. It's easy to
Yeah.
quantify. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's easy to quantify. Totally.
Cool. Okay, so then you're gonna dissolve there's too many words here. We're gonna dissolve this negative mental energy. And that can I hate it because I go to your website and like I look on one side and you have all of this prodigious like hands-on work. And then the words we have to use feel so vague. Like, what does somebody mean? She's gonna help me dissolve this negative mental. What are we talking about here? So, right? Because
Yeah,
like,
right. Well, sure, because we're in a society right now where most of us, and you have kids, so you understand what I'm saying when I'm going to say this,
yeah,
that we're not necessarily raising our kids with this sense of body, mind, and soul and spirituality. And a lot of the techniques I had to, like everything I studied and came up with, I had to figure out a way to explain it to my child when he was young,
yep,
to raise him with concepts so that he would grow up and not have the same
yeah,
issues or
toolkit. Yeah,
aberrations.
Yeah.
kookiness or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like I had to come up with things that now I've trademarked
Hmm.
in order to help him that are just built into the freedom from stress framework now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
something that's called a mind muscle exercise. And like even when he was a kid, right, he'd go to sleep and I would tell him like, okay, remember to exercise your mind muscle. And when he was young, I would have to do it with him. As he grew up, then it's much easier. And this is something that I use quite regularly in coaching techniques, but it's literally to train yourself to remember good things instead of bad things. But you have to like close your eyes and like you get a picture of where you were at that time, who you were with, what emotions you were feeling, and it calms anxiety. Like it can actually literally bring, like if a person's emotional high is at like a 10, it can just bring it straight down into normal range. We're talking like a 3 or a 4
Yeah.
when like the 1 is better than the 10, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, like, is it a boat? Is it golfing for someone? Is it a spa experience? Is it the last time you saw your grandmother when she was alive? Is it when your child was first born? Is it when you won this huge award on with your workplace and you were on a stage and there was, 10,000 people clapping for you? Like, I don't know, it's going to be different for every single person, right? Because whatever their purpose is, a person will go back to when they were living in their purpose usually.
Yeah. One of the things I'll have them do is practice going from one emotional state to the next. So I'll just
Hmm.
sit there with them with a little timer, and they got like, I don't know, 5, 10 seconds. I'm like, okay, anger. And then they like go there as quickly as they can. And then I'm like, okay, curiosity. And then like, okay, like mischievousness. Okay, sadness. Okay, inspired. Okay, and I would just
Yeah.
like come up with all these things so that there's like some weird training of their mind muscle, if you want to call it that, that they're like, oh wait, I can go in and out of this thing just at will. And sometimes they need this sort of like visual support of like, okay, well, think of a time when this happened, because that's a muscle they haven't actually practiced. Like they can go to anger real
Well,
fast, but they can't
sure,
go to
exactly.
they can't go to wonder really fast. I'm like, well, we need to work on that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, totally. I think it's amazing. You and I have a lot in common because you went through an interesting experience or a tough experience or however you would describe it. And I did as well in order
Yeah,
to discover what I did. And, a lot of times we take well, at least for me, I took the pain and the uncomfortableness and the tragedy and turned it into how do I help others now with everything that I've learned.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean, I'll tell individuals that I coach that like our mind and the course goes along with it and actually gives someone the education and walks them through
nice, nice.
learning the technique. But our mind is like a television. So you imagine like because you're the spiritual being and you have a remote control and you strengthen that muscle by practicing changing the channels.
Yeah,
So, we appreciate our health and we know now, like most of us know, and if they're not keeping their body healthy, it's just because of complete refusal to do it. But, going to the gym or spending time outdoors or doing walks or biking or going biking or doing something for activity is commonplace knowledge now, right, Bob?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, right. And
very much.
so this is something that is very successful that I teach, where it is actually practicing to exercise your mind muscle like you would go and exercise the body outside or the gym. You've got to actually train in a way of exercising the mind muscle.
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me how much the sort of common consensus about the mind is that we're sort of victims to it. Like the thoughts happen to us, the emotions happen to us. And I feel like sometimes remind myself, but like remind other people, like, dude, it's your brain, it's your mind. Well, hold on a second. If it's not obeying you, make it obey. It's yours. It's not the other way around. You're
Right.
not its.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally.
This what's
But
interesting
there
is
is like a distinction between the brain and the mind. And so that's what I was going
sure.
to say is that we grow up in this society where we're fed all this false data or confusion. If it's from the medical industry, if it's from the educational system, like it comes from all different directions. And so we're not necessarily taught growing up that we have body, mind, and soul, that we're a whole entire human being. You
Yeah.
know, there's like this unfortunate viewpoint from psychology that is like man is an animal. Have you heard about that before? You
Oh,
know what?
oh, totally. I mean, this is like neo-Darwinism and all of the
Yeah,
stuff that
right.
they used to
Just
be
like,
like assumptions and hypotheses, and then they became dogmatized somewhere in the late
yeah,
1800s, and now
yeah.
everybody just accepts it as fact that man is basically a lumbering robot, to use Richard Dawkins,
Right.
language.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like all based in like Freudianism or something,
Yeah, yeah,
back when like lobotomies were still accepted in society.
yeah.
Like the beast must be able to be cut out of the human body. And it's quite archaic. And most of us agree that this is not actually true
Yeah,
when we get down to talking about it, but these practices still exist in society. So, unless people like you and I are having powerful conversations to get truth out there
sure.
and help individuals with no, like you're not an animal. Like you don't have to act like a dog that has no control over themselves when somebody walks by a fence. We are in control of our bodies and minds, and we have to exert the control.
That's interesting because there's like Old Testament language in there where it's like the earth is created, and let's say your earth happens to be your body, this little planet, and your
Sure.
atmosphere happens to be your vibe,
Yes.
the weather
I like
going
I
on
like
the
that.
surface,
I like
right?
that analogy.
And then Adam and Eve were created to have dominion over the earth, not to be necessarily demand. But like, well, if we go wild, then all of a sudden it's got dominion over us. So it has this weird, that's interesting Old Testament sort of echoes in it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, right, to each their own. Like I don't get
sure,
into trying to change or bypassing someone's relationship with their spiritual self or God or
sure,
how, they best understand it. I consider myself an all faith counselor. I was raised in Christianity, so I know a lot about it, but I have a lot of friends in a lot of different faiths. And, you know, some of my best friends are Jewish. Some of my best friends are Buddhists. Some of my best friends are practice all sorts of religions. So it is, I think, and a lot of more enlightened individuals believe that as long as you're following your path and your purpose and helping yourself and your family and then others and then the community, right? Because, these ripple effects go outward from ourselves, then things are going okay.
sure. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty common message among them for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so what I think is interesting though is that some of the stuff you developed is with your kids because like I teach people what I call emotional ninjutsu, right? And
Uh-huh.
the terminology, like what I had to do, the acronym, everything came out of like me trying to teach my like 9-year-old boy. I'm like, son, okay, what do we do here? How do we call this? How do we do this thing?
Yeah.
And how do I talk to a kid who's having a nightmare? How to like take back control of their brain and like get rid of all the energy of it. So I had to like do it with my kids. And it
Yeah.
turns out that adults actually respond really well to that type of simplicity.
Yeah, right. I mean, we would like things to be codified, broken down, a framework, a system. I mean, I would have killed to have had this framework when I was younger, trying to help my mom and arguing with my family about this unfortunate situation in mental health that we still have in our society. I would have killed to have it. I mean, everything that I learned about mental health, everything that I learned about the nonprofits that I'm affiliated with, everything that I learned about the vitamin companies, or what do you do about this, or like, are the diagnoses real? Where do you find the truth? How do you advocate for yourself? Where is all this education? You
Yeah, so
know,
go there for a second. What are the diagnoses real? Because
I
I
mean,
have something I tell my clients for sure, right? And the people I work with for sure. I'm curious how you approach this question.
Yeah, so I would never go right out and refuse someone's reality because I follow a very strict code at
Sure.
honoring someone's viewpoint and
Sure.
supporting them and helping and not telling anyone that they're wrong. And if they're interested in discovering the truth, then they can read about all these different things. So I will guide and answer questions, but not come right out and say it, other than when I get on my extreme videos that I'll make sometimes about how upset I get regarding school shootings or
Sure.
what's happening in the broken mental health system and how are we doing this to kids, and come on, their brains are still developing and all of
Sure.
those things. But at this point in time, there's no scientific test. And so I can tell you from my experience of meeting many professional psychiatrists, highly paid, the worst mental hospitals to the best mental hospitals on the Pacific Palisades with the doctor's office looking over the Pacific Ocean, right?
Sure.
You know, the whole gamut, is that there was never a test done. And so if there's never a medical test done to prove this, because it's not like someone has a growth like a cancer, something where you can actually look at the white blood cells or take a scan and see, is this a
Yeah.
2 centimeter tumor or is this 13 centimeters? Like, what are we looking at here? Has this disease spread all over the body or not? So it appears to me that what is happening still is that there's like this embedded practice within the profession still that is left over from that man is just an animal, and like this thing just has to be like removed or cut out, and the diagnoses are correlate with insurance codes and medicine.
Yeah. Very much. Like it feels, from what I understood from some of the counselors and therapists I've talked to, that very much the diagnoses were meant to be internal things just to help with billing insurance and whatnot. And then they've leaked into the public, and now everybody is diagnosing each other with them. And now
Yeah.
we've become therapists for each other instead of people
Mm.
with each other, which is awesome, not?
Yeah.
And
Right. Right. Right.
and and you have people like Amy Schreier, is that her name? She wrote the book Bad Therapy.
Uh-huh.
Um, she's like, if you're using these terms like I need to set boundaries and do all this stuff with your like friends, then you've become like a therapist all of a sudden instead of
Mm.
like a human. You're therapizing your friends. We got to stop that. Um,
Yeah. Sure.
I think that your point about not is was there a test done? It's interesting. I had Dr. Stephanie Rimka on a few weeks ago, who's a naturopathic functional medicine kind of stuff, and she's people come in, they're like, I have ADHD. She's like, really? Let's scan your brain. Let's look at all of the structures in the brain. And she actually does the very thing that I'd never heard of it before. I'm like, really? You're like literally taking them in and you're scanning their brain for abnormalities and function, and you're looking at their chemical readouts and all of the lab tests and whatnot, what they're deficient is and nutrient stuff. And then comes, okay, this is where we're at. Now we can say whether definitively you match ADHD or not, or and
Yeah,
that
I mean, there are brain
Russian.
scans done there. I
Yeah.
mean, right. There are brain scans done now. And I think the first psychiatrist who started doing that was Dr. Amen.
Okay.
And he has a huge institute. But anyway, it has progressed a little bit, but are there actual chemicals that are out of balance that prove that someone has bipolar or depression? And I am on the side that says no, it is actually a spiritual issue and
Mm,
something that can be corrected or controlled. I mean, right, like are neurotransmitters out of balance? Could there be extreme vitamin deficiencies? Yes. Could there be hidden viruses or bacterias causing mental illness symptoms? Yeah, Lyme's causes intense
yeah.
symptoms. It's something that I dealt with many, many years ago,
Yes.
and doctors want to put it in a category of mental illness. And, what is going on with the body? I would say like 90% of the time, there's something happening in the body.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. Like
foundationally.
I mean, even with people that are like, I'm like, look, if you're gonna go, if we just break, this is not the case because there's the whole spiritual component. But if we broke it down and we said, look, let's just pretend for a second that this is really a chemical issue. Like pressure in the body creates a chemical situation. Tension in the body creates a chemical situation. Neurotransmitters and electrical firing creates a
Sure.
sort of chemistry, right?
Yeah.
Even nerves
Right,
are
right.
built on chemistry, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
sure.
I go, let's pretend that this is chemical. What are things people do to change their chemistry? Well, you have the ones that take in a substance from the outside, hoping that the reactions will change this sort of chemical soup. This is hyper simplified. I get it. But that's like drugs, food. I mean, like there's all the things that we ingest, smells, and you name it, like prescriptions, whatever it is, in order to manage the chemistry. There's activities they do so that they can produce different chemicals on the inside. So they're going to go, whether it's kissing or sex or running or hiking or out in the woods or I don't know, watching television. And then there's like the neurological stimulation, which television does this thing where it's like if I can just get the nerves to fire and my
Right.
imagination fires up, then I can create a new state inside myself. And there's healthy ways to do each of those, not so healthy ways to do each of those. And so I was like, look, so the question is, if you're going to manage your chemistry, you can either do it from the outside and let everything else determine your chemistry, or you can just learn to do it from the inside. And that does bypass the whole spiritual piece a little bit, but it's in an attempt to be like, just, it's really simple. There's not much. We just have to learn. And let's
Hmm.
say I have a chemical deficiency. I'm like, okay, still, you're either going to manage it from the outside or the inside. What if you could learn to do it from the inside?
Hmm. Hmm.
What about that?
Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, I think you've become good at bypassing the spiritual element, so to speak, with people. Is that fair for me to say that like that?
What do you
I
mean by
mean,
bypassing?
well, it's just like getting them to control their whatever mental phenomena or effects of the stimulus response are on their body.
Yeah, so I would say like what I do is go, let's bypass this notion that you're a victim to the thing.
Oh, sure.
And then
That's fair.
let's look at the levers that we can control
Hmm.
that we can measure some level of progress. So because I'm not bypassing the spirituality part at all. Like there's other things that I'm checking in with them to make sure they do. But there's a belief that this is a thing that's happening to me. I have this
Hmm.
mental health issue, and I so my sort of wizardry, I guess, at first is to get them to go like, what if we could actually define the problem correctly?
Yeah.
Or at least more correctly.
Yeah.
And what if that already shows you a way out? And so when they're like triggers, like what do you mean by a trigger? Or when they're anxious, because you work a lot with anxious, anxiety and stress and those types of things.
Well, I mean, it's not actually, I'm just very good at it.
Yeah.
Like creating a plan
Yeah.
and just dissolving that situation wherever it came from. And so that the issue either completely goes away or it greatly diminishes. I'm
Yeah.
very good at that because that was sort of my quest is to figure out this mental health piece. But what I focus on are individuals that actually are desiring a transformational journey.
As opposed to the ones that are desiring just fix me so I can go back to the lifestyle that made this a problem in the first place.
Yeah, like, a entrepreneur or professional that says like, I'm ready for these hidden subconscious stress things that keep me in a loop, so to speak, to kind of be absorbed, go away, either relationships get better, balance in life where, my work is really great and I'm making lots of money, but I'm unhappy not going on dates. I don't know, different people say different things, right? My
Sure, sure.
relationship with my kids isn't as good. I've done really great in this area, but this is out of whack and this is not really feeling good. So finding wherever the initial issue started and sort of pulling the plug out on that so that it can unfold in a really nice, beautiful way for where they're taking their life, right? Like, where are you going in life? Where is your vision? And so helping people get there is really my favorite.
Well, yeah. For sure. That was such a cute way of saying it. It's my favorite.
It's my favorite. It's my favorite, like a real spiritual journey, like fix the foundation, the body health, whatever education needs to occur,
Yeah.
and then learning the mind muscle exercise, and then ending up being able to work in person, and then doing the real magic.
So I'm sure that on your journey there has been this sort of pressure. Maybe not. I'm not sure. I assume that
Ah,
now that you're the person that is sort of in the front and trying to teach other people how to do this stuff, that there's a lot of pressure for you yourself to no longer have any issues. Um,
mm,
like to be the person on camera that's like, okay, yeah, no, I have it all together, whatnot. And I've interviewed other people, talked to some other people, many other people who I see this in them, this like subtle need to just like diminish or hide or and not be able to be as real with themselves as they once were in order to like
mm.
overcome some things. Do you run? I mean, I'm assuming you've run into that a number of times and have had to like take a step back and go, "Whoa, what's going on here?"
Well, I think what you're saying is like, how do I take care of myself? Is that the actual question? Because
It,
does it mean that like after you're finished with the transformational journey, like there's never anything else to handle in life?
right,
No,
that's
for
the
sure.
expectation for your average person. Yeah,
Well, sure. It's not like, but this is sort of ingrained in society, Bob, and maybe you will agree with this, is that somehow, and I don't know if it came from the medical industry or archaic principles in psychology. Like I don't know exactly where it came from. It'd be interesting to hear your viewpoint on this, but that there's some magic pill. And like somehow we thought maybe it's Disney when we were kids watching some cartoon. Like, oh wow, when I grow up, it's just gonna be
happily
magical
ever after,
and
right?
happily ever after.
Yeah,
And that's, I mean, I guess
because the old
maybe.
fairy tales aren't like that. The old fairy tales aren't like
Yeah.
that at all.
No, somebody is actually on the losing side.
Yeah. So the old fairy tales aren't like that. The new ones are. And I also think that the pill comes from the sort of industrial revolution thing.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Because
it
like
could be.
once the whole world got hopped up on caffeine, and then all of a sudden clocks get invented. Michael Pollan did this great journey on caffeine. I don't know if you've read his book, his like I don't forget the name of the book, but there was a segment on caffeine, and he did this history of caffeine and looked at the origins of clock and time and like how we start to control our time and productivity and the effect of caffeine on the brain and like what that starts to produce in terms of a drive to do more. And so all of a sudden you have this like speeding up of demand, hyper control of time. More has to get done in the smaller time. And that's just
Yeah.
across the globe. And then it just sort of bleeds into, well, healing has to happen on my schedule too. Because if it doesn't happen, I got these other things to do. And then I'll feel more miserable because I can't do those things because and healing is so inconvenient in today's society.
Can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's too arduous or not a really great program or not effective, I can imagine.
Yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
I had those experience when I had to go to family therapy sessions and the different things that I experienced. Like, this is not really pleasurable because it's not really working. And I'm interested in something that actually works,
yeah,
and fine if it takes a couple weeks or it takes a couple months, but I'd like something that actually, if I say that I hate apples, and then you say, if we do this program in the next 2 months, you're going to feel better about apples, then I'm going to do it because that is the goal that I have. Like,
sure.
let's make it more real. Like maybe it's like someone's like, for some reason, I have this fear or this deep set feeling of not liking men or maybe not liking women, but I know I'll feel better in life if I can just get over that and have a good relationship. So if we can, when we do a program together, then we can help find that hidden subconscious stress and dissolve it so that then relationships can improve.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the piece that, years and years ago when I started doing this, like I didn't see that level of targeting. There wasn't that level of like, well, let's aim at the exact source of this thing. Like the talk was around getting to the root, but mostly it was like, well, yeah, we're going to get to the root eventually.
Well, it's like surface, and then it's like years and years, and like,
Yeah.
when are you doing that?
Yeah.
And totally,
Yeah.
totally right. And like not using something like hypnosis, which goes in and installs more things in the subconscious or unconscious, however whichever word you like,
Yeah.
basically mean the same thing. But if somebody decides like, okay, I really want to quit smoking, and then they'll go to hypnosis therapist, for example, to get a command installed to give them the, affirmation, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word,
Sure.
that I am going to quit smoking, or I hate cigarettes, or,
Yeah.
many different commands like that we can pick. And then so now they have in the subconscious the desire to smoke. And now they have this other command right on top of it. So now there's like an inner war. It's
Yeah.
like worse. It's kind of like, whoa.
Same thing happens in physical therapy. Like if you have a bad postural issue and all you're doing is using your muscles to correct it, you have one tension and then another tension fighting itself, and then you end up breaking somewhere later down the road.
Right. Like the pressure's got to come out somewhere.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's such a beautiful analog between how the body processes things and how, mentally and emotionally these things can get processed. And I find those very helpful. Like, look, if you just add another tension on top, don't get me wrong, you'll look like you have great posture.
Yeah.
Um,
But maybe
but
it won't end up working out so well in a
you
few
might have some
years.
back pain in a few years, and
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
gonna
Like the
last for
pressure,
a
like,
while.
yeah, it just ends up poking out eventually.
Yeah. So yeah, same thing. So yeah, in your case, in my case, I'll look to these sort of mental stuff. I mean, I use predominantly body training for maybe 70% of it. And then I figure like once the body is in a state where it's calm, where it's clear, now I can go look at the mind without it being so reactive. Um,
Mm.
most of the time. I don't always do that, but most of the time. Where on your end,
Yeah.
you're looking at a lot of this, like, well, let's go dig into this sort of remembered whatever the source of the thing is that deposited that pattern.
Well, right, because like where did the if there are such thing as stress triggers, right?
Sure. For a label,
Or
whatever it is, like
for a
some
label,
stimulus
or
that you respond to automatically
something,
like that. Yeah.
yeah, something gives a person an automatic or a stimulus response mechanism in their body. So the mind is affecting the body.
Yep.
We agree on that part,
At
right?
least it did at one point, and now the body's just running the program, or however you want to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like the spiritual being in control had to either give into that in order to rework the wiring system. You got to take the reins back.
Yep. Mm. Yeah.
Okay, I got it, body. You really want to eat crap all day long, and have sex all day long, and have porn addiction and use drugs and all the different like negative coping mechanisms that we all know a ton about. Or I'm going to take the reins back, and I'm going to start peeling this onion.
Yeah. Very much. I mean, I'll
Yeah, it's
tell
like
people, I'm like,
nobody, nobody. Sorry. No.
yeah, I'll tell people, I'm like, look, when you were a baby, you had none of these. You didn't have any of these habits. And so that means you learned them somewhere along the way. And you learned them so well that they became like a muscle memory, automatic. You don't even have to think about it. I was like, isn't that
Yeah.
amazing? If you can learn to do something like this automatically without even having to think about it, what else could you learn to do?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's totally true.
you already have the apparatus. They're like, oh, something's broken about me. I'm like, no, the fact that you can be this miserable means something is so right on.
Yeah.
It's just
Totally, totally. So
just the
one of the
programming.
things that I say quite often is you are learning a bit in the beginning to retrain yourselves, but or retrain ourselves, not necessarily you, but like either me or somebody that I'm coaching. But we are on our own journey, so we are actually remembering, right? So we are awakening ourselves to a greater awareness, more consciousness. So that's a lot of the things that I in the beginning that sort of go over as far as education.
Okay.
Like not like rewiring the brain. I don't mean rewiring like that, but rewiring how to do it and how to remember. Like so if we're ingrained in the subconscious and or unconscious, then how do we get back more in the conscious and take those reins back to take life in the direction that we'd actually like to go,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, essential training. I spent 4 years with a Zen Sherpa, like just, and Himalaya. I mean, I went all over the place,
Oh,
looking for.
yeah, you did?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I
Yes.
mean, and some of the training is great. Some of it goes off the rails in different ways.
Yeah.
But like there's elements of it that ring true across all space and time, which is that you have a body, it is
Yeah.
reacting a certain way.
Yeah.
However you want to conceptualize the mind, there are certain functions it does, and
Yeah.
there are certain things you can do to access those functions. It's like duh, you know,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
it's super helpful. Okay,
Totally.
so all right, so we only have a couple minutes left. What should I have asked? What is the thing that you wish people could know that like people don't ask you?
Mm, I don't know, honestly. Like, what should you have asked?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, well, where can people find you? Like if they want to know more about you,
Yeah, I
or
mean,
they
you can ask anything you want, right?
yeah,
I mean,
an
we're all
open
on journeys. It's like really is my 100% viewpoint is that we're all on journeys and that people find me at the time that they're ready to take their life to that next level.
sure. Yeah.
I'm
So
a, I call myself a professional garbage disposal behind closed doors. Well,
yeah, fair enough.
oh, garbage disposals are very effective, right?
They
I mean, it
are.
really illustrates, right? You have garbage in the mind and you put it down the garbage disposal and then it's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's effective.
That's a beautiful off the wall image for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I'm a bit off the wall. I had to be kind of off the wall to have the experiences that I've had in
Fair
order
enough.
to get here. You have to be pretty courageous to go against the grain and figure out a path.
Yeah, we talked about that before we started recording, and maybe that's a good note to end on. Is like your sentiment was like that in the end, courage is really where it all starts. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, really it's you have to have the courage to question. You have to have the courage to look. You have to have the courage to try. You have to have the courage to take your life to the next level. It's really courage.
And for the people that like, I don't know if I have that kind of courage, what would you say to them?
Well, I think that they do. I think that we are beautiful spiritual beings that have somehow gotten stuck energy or negative energy in the mind that is affecting us, and it is like become a composite of somebody that pales in comparison to who you actually are. And as we begin to peel that onion, the person blossoms. And, whatever trauma, whatever negative thing, whatever faults things, whatever failures, whatever disappointments, wherever that comes from, whatever experience is what I mean, then as that is removed, the person then is left with who they truly are. They become more of who they are. So I don't think anyone is actually 100% like not courageous. Like some of us have more interest in public speaking or leading than others. Some of us have more interest in artistry than others. But I think that that individual has all the courage they need to do exactly what they are intending to do. And something may be there as a mental block, but it can be handled.
Yeah, for sure. To them, to most times, I'll say to them, look, step one means the step you can take. It doesn't mean, oh, a step that's
Yeah.
bigger than you. And so
Yeah.
if you're like, I don't have that kind of courage, it's probably because you're trying to take step 20. Back it off a little bit. Let's start with
Yeah,
step
just like
one.
yeah, go back to like get the gradient down a bit.
I need to be on top of that mountain now. Oh, you're gonna have to walk on air to do that. Good
Yeah.
luck. Um, But you
Yeah,
need,
that's
we can walk out your front door, we can go there and we can start, and
yeah,
that we
yeah,
can do.
yeah,
Well, it's
yeah,
been a
for
pleasure,
sure.
Miriam. If somebody wanted to
Such a
find
pleasure.
you, where can they go?
I have a website, miriamputnam.org, M-I-R-I-A-M Putnam.org, and then on Instagram, Miriam Putnam. Very easy.
Very
Bob,
easy.
it's been such a pleasure
Well,
sharing this
good.
space with you.
Well, good,
Awesome.
good.
I'm so excited about our new friendship.
Yes, indeed. Well, all the best, and thank you so much for encouraging people and doing what you're doing and still trying to figure stuff out and for taking care of yourself so that you can keep going.
Yeah, and you too.